Welcome! Today we are back in Paarl after last week riding the monstrous new 1390 Super Duke R. And Paarl KTM have let us ride another new little gem of theirs. It's this, the Duke 990. Now the name 990 isn't new to KTM. In fact, the digits 990 are iconic in KTM owners' eyes. It was what originally took on the GS and was mad and angry and sporty and laid the foundations for the reputation KTM now has.
So really, this thing has a lot to live up to.
The first Super Duke was in fact a 990, and on paper it leaves big shoes to fill. At 999.8 cc's, it was bigger than the current bike's 947 cc's. The original also had a 75-degree V-twin, one of our favorite engine layouts. Whereas this one has a parallel twin. And yes, the parallel twin is more compact and easier to build, but it's never given the same feel that a proper V-twin has. But let's give this new kid a chance, shall we?
Whoa! 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 I wasn't expecting that. No, I really was not expecting that. I was thinking like 890, it'll be nice, it'll be like a bit of spirit to it, it'll get your adrenaline going a little bit, but I opened the throttle and more than adrenaline came out. Yeah. This is not a slow motorbike.
This new boy puts out 121 horsepower, one more than the original 990, and 103 Nm of torque. That's 3 more than the original. Yet, it feels like even more than this. Part of that might be because KTM Paarl fitted it with an aftermarket Akrapovic slip-on exhaust.
Oh, that exhaust. What a glorious note that exhaust makes. I mean, it's not like intrusively loud. It just gives you like a deeper, more thunderous sound. My dad, for all his hooliganism, never really liked aftermarket exhaust. He said it made too much noise and made the neighbors angry. I mostly agree with everything he says, except maybe that bit. I mean, if the neighbors start complaining, just sell them and buy new ones. Much better.
The other reason that the new Duke feels so nippy is because despite all the Euro emission and sound laws throwing mounds of bureaucracy onto this model, the new 990, at 179 kilograms without fuel, weighs a bunch less than the original, and you can feel it.
Into a corner. Damn, this thing is sharp. It turns on a dime. It just feels like nothing. It just tips. Here we come out of this corner, into this corner. Nothing at all. Oh man. Then on the straight. This thing is so much fun. This thing is just... I'm laughing my head off.
There's a new frame too, with steel tubing making up the main frame and aluminium making up the subframe and the swing arm. Part of the weight-saving initiatives was storing the airbox under the seat and using part of the aluminium subframe to do this. The suspension is all fresh stuff from WP with Apex front forks and an Apex monotube rear shock. It all works well, so much so that I can't stop going on about it.
Okay, here we go, another corner. Oh, this thing turns for nothing. It's like it has negative gravity and knee down. There we go. That was fun.
Naturally, as is the way with all modern motorcycles, it is littered with every sort of electronic bit you can think of.
I love these settings. I mean, you can adjust just about everything on this bike. And one of my favorite is the anti-wheelie, whereby, it goes from high, medium, low, and then you think that's sort of it, but no, there's a very low setting. So for no problem, sir, we'll take it until you're 90 degrees vertical, and then stop. There's up-down quick shifter, works fantastically. There's this dash, which is not too dissimilar to the previous one. It's got all the settings in the world. The throttle response is so good. I mean, it's in sport throttle response. You can turn it down a little bit, but this is not, it's not enough to sort of scare me. It's not, it's not like I'm going, whoa. It is strong, but it's like in a good way. If you want to ride to work, maybe on a rainy day, then, turn it down a little bit, but, no need to.
Honestly, I'm not sure why you'd want to do that, though. Even in the rain.
They called the previous Duke, what was it, the Sculpel. That was the 790, I believe. They called it the Sculpel. This is not a Sculpel anymore. This is one of those precision laser cutter things. There's no sculpting here. It'll laser cut exactly where you want it, exactly where you need it. Yeah, one corner. Oh, that throttle is so sharp. I mean, you can change the throttle settings. You can give it different mapping, different idea, but it's so sharp. And I mean, here we go, from 3,500 RPM. Nothing, no jitter, no scratching, no nothing, just wah, takes off.
So it's fast, light, nimble, and fun. But things like these always come at a bit of a cost.
So this bike is so sharp and so sporty. That does come with a little downside, and that is the fact that, when it's sharp and very sporty, it tends to get a little bit of a handful. I mean, it tends to kind of, the bike moves a lot. So when you hit bumps and when you try different things, the bars will move around in your hand. Get a bit twitchy, get out of sorts. It's not dangerous. I've not got to the point on this bike where I've thought, no, my goodness me, I'm about to die. Never have I got there. And I'm quite used to bikes being twitchy, so I'm fine with it. But, if you are someone who doesn't like your bike moving around a lot underneath you, or you prefer something a little bit comfortable, the suspension on this is a bit sporty, so the bumps are a little bit harsh. So if you are someone who wants something a little bit more comfortable or a little bit very, very stable, you might not quite like this thing. However, the suspension is all fully adjustable, so it's very likely they could kind of tune that out for you a bit.
So if you're not a fan of twitchiness, this might not be the bike for you. But if you're a genuine sports bike fan, this might be exactly what you're looking for.
This is enough. This is enough. This will do that to you all day, everywhere, every how. It's very, very, very good. As a matter of fact, after riding this, I'm not quite sure. I'm not 100% sure I need a 1390. I mean, when I give a 1390 another go, I'll change my mind. But right now, don't know if I need to go that far.
And for a starting price of 264,999 Rand, it's a good deal cheaper than the 1390. But 1390s and 990s are no good unless you have somewhere fun to ride them. And I'm convinced that there's nowhere better in the world than the endless racetrack that is the Cape. So long, Cape, and thanks for all the fun.
Right, let's think back on the bikes that Don rode at the beginning of both this and last week's episodes. Both bikes are Dukes, though last week's was a Super Duke in the shape of the new 1390 Super Duke R. Both Don and myself are huge fans of this incredible machine, though that's not too much of a surprise given that we both love naked sport bikes, V-twins and horsepower. I would defy any biker with even a hint of a pulse to try this bike and remain calm and unmoved by the ride. It's the sort of experience that will reshape your outlook on life, the universe and, well, generally everything. If that makes it sound like this is the ultimate naked sport bike, then so be it. I pretty much think it is exactly that. The only bike I can think that I would prefer is also a 1390 Super Duke R, more specifically the Evo version of the same model that keeps all the bits that make the standard bike brilliant but adds semi-active electronic suspension. The last Super Duke I rode was the 2023 Evo and it properly blew me away. I am admittedly a sucker for some well-executed new technology and I'm also inherently very lazy, and so anything that can improve my biking life with the least amount of effort possible from my side is a definite win. being able to adjust the character of the ride quality that the Evo gives you at the touch of a button or two, and not having to fiddle with any analog adjusters may not sound like much, but I definitely think it's worth the premium in terms of cost over the standard model. As someone who is of the firm belief that too much of a good thing doesn't actually exist in the real world, you may be surprised to learn that I think for most, a rewarding alternative more so to the Super Duke R may in fact be the standard 990 Duke. One of my favourite hobby horses is bike power in the real world. Now don't get me wrong, I love the idea of 200 horsepower plus sport bikes, even naked ones, but I also know that even within the closed and carefully controlled conditions of a perfectly prepared race circuit, the vast majority of riders, me included, are still going to get nowhere near the exploitable limits of the Super Duke R. Back in the real world and on public roads, I'm of the opinion that the sweet spot for a rapid sport bike is probably down around the 110 to 120 horsepower area, and as such the 990 Duke is already verging on too much with its 121 horsepower. I'm still waiting for my own first taste of these latest versions of KTM's legendary naked bikes, but I'm quite sure I'll end up at largely the same opinion as Don. But being older, arguably very slightly wiser and more prone to the call of reality rather than fantasy, I'm confident that once ridden, much like the choice I would have made between last year's 890 Duke and 1290 Super Duke R, it's the smaller of the two bikes that I would choose to have in my garage. That's not to say that I'm immune to the charms of big engines and seemingly pointless displays of horsepower, backed up by my fondness for one of the possibly silliest sport touring bikes ever made, the 1290 Super Duke GT. I love this superbike barely disguised as a tourer. I appreciate its almost offensively ugly aesthetic, and I can only marvel at its ability to combine some genuine long-distance comfort with insane levels of performance. The good news for me and other fans of such oddball bikes is that the GT will, almost certainly before the end of this year, be on the receiving end of the 1390 treatment and all that entails. So, a new set of clothes, more power, and probably a bang-up-to-date Evo range-topping model to boot. And there are also the faintest of rumours beginning to swirl about a bike I've been hankering after for several years now, a GT in KTM's middleweight category. My desires in this direction were satiated somewhat by the arrival of the 890 SMT, a long-term loan of which is currently sat in my garage from where I took it this morning for something of an emotional first recent ride in 10 months, a ride long delayed by an illness I've been battling for the past year or so. However, although I am very impressed by the 105 horsepower SMT, I can't help thinking that a 120 horsepower 990 GT would steal my heart even more effectively. Perhaps 2025 will see this particular KTM dream of mine finally come true.